Hello everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I see someone is already here. Welcome, Value Added Parenting. Welcome to all who are joining us. It's a great day to be here. If you haven't invited someone yet, make sure you do so. Today we're going to be talking about language development for your 0 to 6 year old child and 7 simple habits you can begin to inculcate from today to make a big difference in their language development. All right, so just a minute, please. Okay. All right, if you're here, let us know where you're joining from. Let's know the ages of your children, and we're going to get started right away. So my name is Nkem Sinachi Ago, and I'm the founder of the Montessori Home Education Academy, where we run the Montessori Home Education program to support parents to introduce the Montessori method at home using a very simple curriculum that can be inculcated in their everyday lives with their children. Today, we are looking at language development for your 0 to 6 year old and seven simple habits you can begin to implement from today. I've also tagged it 7 S's because each point is going to start with an S, so it's easier to remember as well. Please confirm you can hear me before we go further. Please confirm. Just making sure of that. Once I have one confirmation, I'll be good to go. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Peppy. Thank you. And I guess that means you can hear me. So that's good. We're going to carry on. Welcome from Scotland. So the first S, so we're calling it 7 S's, 7 simple habits to help with language development in your 0 to 6 year old. Um, the first one, the first S is speak. So speak to them, speak to your child. This is even from when they are babies, right? And in fact, we've also learned that even while they are still in the womb, at a certain number of weeks, I can't remember the exact number of weeks, but they can begin to hear our voices or hear music. So you can start speaking to them even from then. So the first S is speak to them because children can only learn the words that they've heard. If they never hear a word, they wouldn't just automatically know that, okay, maybe when they turn a certain age, they'll know that this is a word that exists and this is what it means. So you have to actually speak to them. There's something that happens sometimes when maybe parents realize that they are calling the child by the child's name and the child is not responding, even when the child has started hearing and responding to certain things. There's a milestone, where they'll say, "Oh, the child is responding to their name," and the parents may say, "Oh, he's not responding to his name, or she is not responding." But the truth is that if you haven't been calling the child by that name, maybe you've just been referring to them as baby this, baby that, or some other context, or just talking directly to them or about them, there is no other way they would know. I like to really say this because sometimes it's funny. We may not even realize that the child has not even been hearing their name, and there's no other way for them to know that this is their name if you don't call them often, if you don't use that name with them frequently. So speaking to them, using words with them, this is how they are able to pick up gradually language and different contexts, whichever language that you are speaking. So that is the first S. Now we're going to the second S. The first is speak to them. The second one is speak with them. Welcome, Fisaya. Thank you for joining. Good afternoon. So the second S we are looking at is speak with them. So the first was speak to them, using words to when you're talking to them. The next one is speaking with them. So even if they are not responding, say something, for example, that might prompt them to laugh or prompt them to even correct you. So for babies, for instance, we don't even expect them to say something back, but they might just giggle, they might laugh, they might just be looking at your face, right? So speak with them. If they make a particular sound, you can say, "Oh, did you say I'm funny?" Just pretending like having a sort of conversation with them. That is usually very interesting. It helps to build that communication. And like I say, if you're already with a baby and maybe you're not even talking much, you might as well be making conversation, especially if you spend a lot of time with them. um and another, so that's one good thing definitely you want to know. The second habit to start building is speaking with them even when it looks like they're not responding with you. Even with older children, maybe they have speech challenges, sometimes if they're able to give some feedback or some form of communication to show that they can hear you, you can just have short conversations. "Oh, this is going on. and see how they respond to it. But it's always good to still keep the conversation going. I know it can be difficult, really, picturing the example of babies or people that are not able to respond, but maybe they are working on the process. You want to still keep it up, as hard as it may be, or as much patience as you need. Is a habit you don't want to drop. You want to keep building on that habit. So that is the second S. And then I also wanted to point out that children, for instance, they like to have the opportunity to correct you. Like if you say something that they know is wrong, they'll say, no, it's not this. So even if they were maybe not interested in the conversation, it might prompt them to say something. So that's also a trick you use sometimes if the kids come back from school and you're saying, how was your day? Fine. What happened today? Nothing. So one trick I learned somewhere is you can say something like, oh, did you eat maybe rice and stone today? You might see them start with stone. I didn't eat stone. And then they start trying to respond because they now want to correct you. It's sort of poking them a little bit to respond to that conversation. So those are some tricks you can try. So moving on to the third S. So already we've looked at the first one, which is speak to them. The second one is speak with them. The third one now is show that they are seen and heard. So how do you show a child that they are seen and heard? So like we we do on the YouTube videos, oh, confirm you can see me, you can hear me. If I see maybe some people are live, but I'm just talking and I'm not seeing any responses or any chat, I might actually be concerned that the people that I'm talking to cannot hear me. So that's when I start asking, can you hear me? Can you see me? Right. So picture children, for example, how do we show them that they are seen and they are heard, even when they are talking and they're not making sense yet, maybe when they're just babbling or when they're still learning how to talk? One of the things you can do is by active listening. So you look up from what you were doing, make eye contact, and pause whatever it is that you were doing, at least to listen to the initial thing they want to say, even if you would have to say, okay, I need 1 minute or I need 2 minutes. Your facial expressions, nodding, so showing that they are seen and heard is very key for children and even for babies when they start babbling, when they are not yet making some sense. Just once you hear that sound from them and you turn to look at them, say, they are saying, la, 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 la. Okay, you want milk? So just showing that you can see them and you can hear them is very key. Just the kind of feedback we ask for on a YouTube live. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I want to make sure because you could just be recording a video and you don't even know that there is no feedback on the other end. So it's important that third S is very important to show the child that they are seen and heard by looking up, actively showing that you heard what they said or that you heard a sound from them or you saw them trying to communicate. Now, the fourth S is say something back. So it's one thing to show that you can see and hear them. It's another thing to say something back. So imagine, let's picture maybe it's nighttime and you were just doing, or maybe you are listening to music with your headphones and you heard a sound, or you think you heard a sound. You might maybe pause the music, and then you do your eyes like this. Did I hear something, right? So you might actually stop, look around. So this is, for example, when we say show that they are seen and heard, show that you heard that noise or that sound. Now, if you don't hear any sound again, you might put the headphones back and continue what you were doing, or whatever the case may be, right? But if you hear something, maybe you find out that someone was talking to you, and you say something back to that person, then that is actual confirmation that not only are they seen and heard, but at least you also understood what they said, right? So this is very key because sometimes we may find ourselves, oh, we've heard about active listening, and then someone is talking to us, whether babies, children, or even adults, and then we're just nodding, and then the person finishes the conversation because we were just trying to show that we're listening without actually listening or understanding or asking questions to confirm. The conversation might end and we won't even realize that, okay, it's time for us to say something back, right? So paying attention is one thing, showing that you can hear them is another thing. Saying something back is actual confirmation that, okay, you understood what they said or what they tried to say. So for little children, for example, they might say when they start trying to talk, they might not be pronouncing words clearly, but they know what they want to say in their minds, right? So if they say, maybe they're pointing at something and they're saying ball, but maybe it's sounding like all or fall, right? If you hear whatever you hear, if you hear ba, right, you say ba, do you want ba, right? If they hear ba, they know that, okay, this is not what they wanted to say. So they might actually try to say it in a different way. They may start pointing or trying to take you to the place where the item is, right? So you just even responding to repeating that thing that you heard, how you heard it, will let them know, okay, this is what I want to say, but this is what this person is hearing, right? So that communication is very key, and it helps them to now even try to correct you or try to say it in a clearer way, whatever it is. So, but it's very important not only listening to them, nodding, and just saying, well, these babies, who knows what they're saying, right? Or these children, if it's someone that is learning how to talk, even if they're not babies, right? Just saying, this is what you are hearing. Is that correct? Do you want this or do you want that? Right. So that is very helpful when we say something back. So that is the fourth S. We're going on seven S's. So the fifth one we're going to look at now is stay close. So stay close when you speak. What does that mean? For instance, we might just find ourselves yelling at somebody from a distance, maybe upstairs or from one room to the other. Oh, you're calling person's name. Come this. You're giving instructions from a mile away, right? It doesn't really help with comprehension. And even talking about giving instructions, sometimes when we give instructions to children, they need some time to process that instruction. So you might find yourself saying, "I've said this 5 times. I've said this 100 times." The difference, something you can do to prevent saying it 5 times or 100 times, is when you say it the first time, actually pause, let the instructions sink in, right? Avoid using too many words, avoid having like 5 step instructions in one. Of course, I know that there's a milestone, where it says the child can take 2 step instructions, 3 step instructions, but it doesn't mean we have to frequently do that. That should not be our default. As much as possible, you want to break instructions into 1 or 2 steps, and be close to them when you speak. Make eye contact, because if you're just talking to them from a mile away, they might be concentrating on something else, and we don't want to break that concentration, which is very key, right? So it's always good, as much as possible, go close to where they are. Let them see your posture, see your face, see your expression, and also see the way the words are being formed. So sometimes, how they pick language is not just hearing, but also seeing how you're forming those words. One thing I've noticed is that if a child is struggling to pronounce a certain word, um, of course, barring any maybe lip ties or some other challenges, one of the reasons they might be mispronouncing that word is because they haven't seen someone actually form the word. Just the same way, if you're reading a word for the first time and maybe you haven't heard it being pronounced, you just saw it written in a book. However you pronounce it, it's anybody's guess, right? But if you hear someone pronouncing it, that's one step. If it's a new language you're not even familiar with, watching someone shape their mouth to pronounce it is further helpful, right? So this is the same thing for children who are just picking up language. You want to, as much as possible, stay close to them when you're talking. Don't be speaking from a distance, as long as you can manage it. So that is the fifth S. Okay, the next one we are looking at is having so the sixth S is simple and real words or sentences. So simple and real words would mean you don't have to make up words when you're talking with children. You don't have to use like baby talk or baby voice. Of course, the voice can be playful and jovial, but you don't have to be calling something the name that is not the actual name, right? If something is a ball, you call it a ball. And even when the names sound big, it's still good to use the actual name. So simple words means you don't want to, or simple sentences, for instance, you can say ball please or cup please, right? So you're asking for the cup. You're not saying please give me the cup, right? Of course, for someone that is already established in their language, for a child that's already established, you can be given those kind of longer sentence instructions. But for someone that is still starting off, you want to start off with very simple sentences that communicate the message. You're not teaching grammar per se at that point in time. You're just saying ball please, cup please, and when you're giving them something, you can say here you go, right? Or here's ball, or this and that. Um, if you're using actual words of items, so like for an animal, like we have the hippopotamus, you don't. It's not necessary for you to shorten the name for a child and say, "Oh, this is a hippo." If you say hippopotamus, they're not. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't know the word. They might shorten it on their own to hippo, or they might say hippopotamus or whatever it is that they call it. But hearing the correct word is very helpful for them, because that way when they eventually get to start speaking better, they would know what the right thing is. If you're saying rhinoceros, whatever, they actually like big words, especially when they start picking up language here and there. It's very exciting for them when they know a big word and when they can say a big word. And using big words or real words, it's not about just using big words for big sake or for bigness sake. You're trying to avoid ambiguity. You want it to be simple but also clear and correct, so that when they are talking to someone else, the person will also understand what they're saying. So, for instance, there's maybe a common slang for a child being injured, and they say, "Oh, you have a boo boo here," right? Sometimes one person might understand it, the next person might not understand it. So, like with the kids, even though they still picked up that concept of this is a boo boo, I have a boo boo here. That means they're hurt one place or the other. I still try to always tell them, "Oh, you have a cut, you have a scratch, you have a bruise," because these are all different terms. And if you just call everything a boo boo, when are they going to learn the actual thing, right? So this is we don't have to minimize things so much because we feel that they are small. So you just need to find that balance. If something has a name, you call it the actual name. But if you're using sentences, of course, you don't have to start using long and complicated sentences. So that's how you try to balance the simplicity with the realness of the words and the sentences that you're using. So hopefully that is clear. So that is the sixth S. Now moving on to the seventh S. So the seventh S, we'll be talking about screens. Now, in general, you want to minimize screens. For a 0 to 6 year old, typically it is not even required. So it's not something you have to say, okay, now it's time for them to start using screens. There's a lot of research, of course, that shows the age keeps changing. I remember some years ago it was like, oh, once they get your 0 to 18-month-old does not need screens. Then at the point it changed to your 0 to 2 year old. Now we're saying hearing 0 to 3 year old. Some other time we say 0 to 5. The truth is that it is not a necessity. So whatever reason you may have for using it, you want to note that it is a choice you're deliberately making for a specific reason, whatever it is. But one of those reasons should not be that you want to teach them language or that is going to help them to learn how to talk or how to speak, right? So screens should not be one, using language development should not be one of the reasons that you give for using screens, because it does not actually help. There, of course, a lot of people might say, oh, they learned their ABCs on the screen, they learned this on the screen. The truth is, ultimately they can actually just listen to the audio of a particular song or a nursery rhyme without watching the screen, right? This is something that we do all the time. We even listen to, let's say in the car, we play audio stories and you see them paying attention. They are trying to use their imagination, they are visualizing things. We also have sometimes where we listen to dance videos. Maybe they've seen it somewhere before, or we've seen, one like maybe a dance show or something like that, or maybe kids dance and everything. And what happens is that we just put it on the Bluetooth speaker and we're dancing along to it. They don't have to be, if you can actually test and see, if you put it on the screen, there's not much dancing that is going to be happening. They will just stare and be looking at it, looking at it. You say dance, nobody wants to dance. You say, oh, I want them to see the steps on the video. Nobody is just going to be staring and staring, right? But the moment you switch it off and switch to your like a Bluetooth speaker or just the audio, you as the adult can now show, okay, maybe like a sort of learning choreography, right? Remember those times when we used to learn choreography? Nobody was necessarily watching it on the screen. It would just be someone showing you, okay, when you hear this sound, you do your hand like this, do your leg like this. And they are more active, they're participating more, because movement is something that is also very key in building language. So I think for this seventh S, the essence, the key thing to take away is that screens are not your ally when it comes to learning languages. It's not, if that has been your reason at some point, just know that you speaking to your child is several times, multiple times more effective, and movement is also very key when you're learning language, right? So the sensorial input they get by watching you, by moving, by participating is very key. Um, I think one more thing I wanted to say. Okay, yes. So use your speaker, use your audio, even if you can still listen to the same nursery rhymes just by listening to it, right? So just know that most of the time screens are actually an obstacle to language development rather than a supporting tool, right? I think the only exception that I've seen so far or learned about so far based on research is having these interactive video sessions, like maybe calls with family members, or maybe language lessons where the parent is actually participating, but you'll find out that the language lesson or such videos are actually directed at the parent. So it will tell the parent, do this with your child, and then you'll be doing that with your child. So the child doesn't even have to look at the screen or stare at it and just be lost like in a trance state. It will just be active participation. So I think so those are the seven S's. I hope we have all got here. And it's really very simple. There's no long story about it. And I wanted to just share with us so that for this month in the Montessori Home Education Program, we're currently in the language curriculum, which is really very interesting. So if you're still interested, let's say you didn't join us in January, you have the option to join the on-demand program, um, where you can just pay for the 3 months module, and you have access to the Montessori principles, the language curriculum, and also the sensorial curriculum, where you can learn more about language development. You can learn about, how children pick language, learning to read, learning to write, and some basics, really using the Montessori approach. So I think I will pause or stop here for now. If we have any questions, I really like to see it. How do you support your child's language development currently? Let us see that in the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free. We'll just wait like a couple of maybe 2 minutes to attend to any questions that you may have. I hope we're still here. And I hope that was not too fast. All right, so just give it a minute. I think there might be, I'm just going to refresh on my end. Please confirm you can still see and hear me if you have any questions. Just sending this. All right. Just one more minute. Just to note, I think you would, if you want to send a question, you would have to be subscribed to the channel. If you're not able to send in your question, that might be the reason. Otherwise, you should be able to come in. Okay. Thank you for confirming. Do you have any questions, or do you want to share how you have helped with language development with your children so far? And I hope we can all remember the 7 S's. For those that may not have joined at the beginning, I'll just go through it one more time. So the first S is speak to them. The second is speak with them. The third one is show that they are seen and heard by listening to them and making eye contact. The fourth one is say something back. The fifth one, stay close when you speak. The sixth is use, simple and real words and simple sentences. And the seventh one is screens, minimize or avoid, especially if there's any language delays or challenges, because screens is not one of the tools that you necessarily need to improve your language development or language development for your child. And lastly, you are still welcome to join our on-demand program, which includes the language curriculum. The link is in the video description below, and I'm just going to put it in the chat for those of us that might still be interested. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure connecting with you all today. So we'll see you again same time next week. This month is focused on language, so you want to make sure you don't miss any of our sessions. And subscribe, share this with your family and friends. Very straightforward video, but I'm sure you can learn a thing or two and practice right away without much ado. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.